everybody. Welcome to Cookbooks with Virginia Holiday Baking Special. I am about to jump out of my skin. I'm so excited. I have been on cloud 9 since we came up with this idea. So welcome to Cookbooks with Virginia. This is the Holiday Baking Special. Normally, I'm on at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time every Friday or near about every Friday. But today, of course, is Saturday, and I'm super excited because what we're doing is I have a holiday baking special with Rose Levy Beranbaum and her book, Rose's Baking Basics. So y'all, if you want to know 100 essential recipes for baking, if you want to have step-by-step photographs, then you're going to want this book. Rose Levy Beranbaum, of course, needs very little introduction, right? No introduction, but she is the queen of baking, y'all. So I'm so excited to have her on the baking special. And I want you to ask questions. This is a great, great opportunity for everybody to just pitch in and see what they want to learn from Rose. So let's just bring her on and check it out and see what happens.
Yay! Hi, y'all. Hi, Virginia. I can do Southern. I say pecan. I've learned.
I know, there's a big thing in the South of whether it's pecan or pecan, right? And
I get everybody now saying pecan.
I know it. I know. Well, thank you, Rose. Thank you so much for being a guest on the show today. I'm really, my cheeks hurt from smiling. I can't even believe that this is happening.
After all the years that we passed each other into the Hyatt conferences at ICP, it's so good to actually get to talk to you.
No, I know. So for those of us, we've got some folks turning in. We got Jenny Jackson saying hello. That's wonderful. So will you just take a minute and tell the viewers and the people watching just a little bit about yourself and how we have come to have Rose's Baking Basics on the show today?
About myself, I started out trying out various professions because both of my grandmothers were in the garment industry and both of them warned me not to be. So where did I go? The Fashion Institute of Technology. Until my teacher said to me, "You're really good with your hands, but you're not super duper." And I knew to survive on 7th Avenue in New York in the garment district, super duper was the ticket. So I transferred all my credits, and I like to say I went from draping fondant fabric to draping fondant. I mean, all the craft skills that I learned taught me how to drape fondant on cakes, how to make wedding cakes. I made over 100 for sale, of course. I started writing for Cook's magazine. That was the beginning of my writing career. And I've always loved writing. So the whole thing just sort of came together.
That is so wonderful. Well, it's so interesting because I, of course, love working with my hands too, because, I'm a cook and I think that anyone that loves to cook loves working with their hands, but I can hardly sew a button to save my life. It's
just probably wasn't a high priority, right?
No, definitely was not a high priority, much to my grandmother and my mother's consternation. I think there's so let's just talk a little bit about let's just be real. People are terrified of baking. Don't you think that a lot of people are scared to bake?
Not since the pandemic. That really made a huge difference. And when you asked me about how the Baking Basics came to be, it was because my editor said, "Why don't you do a book for beginners?" And I said, "Well, I already have. Every one of my cake Bible, pie pastry Bible, kids have been baking from it. I get all this feedback, and they win ribbons at the county fairs and stuff." Yes. So I said, "Why would I have to do that?" But then I thought of a deal breaker, and I said, if I can have a picture of every step of every recipe, then it's worth something, because even I don't remember exactly what things look like at what different stage. And so I'm referring to my own book, and it's one of my absolute favorite books. It has my favorite cake recipe, my favorite pie recipe, my favorite bread recipe. Of course, toffee is my favorite cookie type. So it's a smaller book than the Bible series, but it's really dear to my heart. I'm so glad you're featuring.
Oh, it's just wonderful. Well, so y'all, let me just take a minute to say, so I want you to go to my Instagram feed, and when you see the cover of this book, you're going to follow the instructions. You're going to like me. You're going to like Rose, and you're going to follow us. She's got great videos. I love the flambe of the French toast recently. So you're going to like us both, and you're going to enter to win a free copy of this book. So yeah, it's incredible reading this. Y'all look at this, the step-by-step photographs for everything. Oh,
And
wait.
Woody and I did all of them here. We didn't take the photographs, of course, but right here in the baking kitchen, we turned the whole basement into a baking kitchen. And so we were able to do it.
That was genius on your part, because in this day and age with the computers and internet and people being able to access recipes, you can see everything. And that is, in a weird way, become limiting for some books when there's just the beautiful picture of it done at the end, because people want to know how to make it from the get-go, right?
But I have to say, we were blessed to have Erin Jean McDowell. I always want to say McDonald. Forgive me, Erin, because she was our stylist for the beauty shots, and they were really true to how we do them. So you wouldn't be thinking, well, I can never make it look like that. She made it beautiful and true to the actual recipe.
Don't you just love her to pieces? We haven't actually
Oh,
met, but she was a guest on the show, and oh my gosh, I just love her to pieces.
she is amazing, and her
She's
recipes and everything. I'm so really privileged to have her as a friend.
that is so great. We'll have to make sure to giving a shout out. I think she's got something going on today too. I'm in love with her compound butter pie crust concept that she's got
Isn't it
going
a brilliant
on.
idea? Oh, she's so
Yeah.
original. I mean, she's
Yeah,
been baking
like,
pies with her grandma since she was a baby. So she is pie.
It's really beautiful. So back to you though. Let me ask you this, so segueing with the grandmother, did you, so I understand what you did with fashion school, but did you grow up baking? Did you grow up cooking?
Au contraire.
Au contraire.
My mother was a dentist, and we didn't have any sweets in the house, but her mother moved in with us when I was about 7, and her mother had a candy store. That was my grandma. So she once made an apple pie, and I was a very bad eater. I didn't like most food. And she said, I'm making this apple pie just this one time. And I ate it. And I said, oh, this I'll eat. And she said, this I will not be making because it's too much trouble. It's not worth the effort. But she knew how to bake. See, in that generation, people made bread. They made everything from scratch.
Right,
But
right.
she wanted me to eat, yes, but she didn't consider apple pie nourishment, I suppose. So I really had to learn. I had to learn on my own. I had no tradition.
No, well, but then that's good because the beautiful thing is that with your books, your Bibles, you have definitely created a lot of family traditions for people. We were talking yesterday about Sally's birthday cake, right? Like this 30-something-year-old woman, I know that she had your rose cake from your cake Bible at one of her first birthdays. And I just think that is such a beautiful story.
Yeah, I had no idea that she'd still saved a piece of it. Of course, it was more
Yeah, it's like
icing
the
in the
rose
lattice.
on the
Yeah.
top.
See, the thing is, there is a real advantage to not knowing how to do something, because then you realize what other people need to know and they know nothing. And that's how I started writing my books. I started writing for myself, actually. I wanted to be able to go back to something I hadn't done for a year and see in the instructions exactly what I needed to know how to do it.
I love that. And I love that you are open and admitting about not remembering how to do something. I think that you're completely right about baking exploding during the pandemic, that people really started baking during the pandemic. And it's also like, you don't know what you don't know. You know what I mean? So it's important to learn. I think it's important to get on the right path.
That's so true. My first cake that was a success was from Joy of Cooking. It was a spice cake. And I wanted something that was velvety, and that's how they described it. And I thought that if I didn't put the spice in, which I didn't want, it might not be velvety because I didn't know. So I used to follow things exactly as it was written. And then in order to get people to reproduce what I did, I started doing weights in addition to the volume. And I found it was so much more accurate, especially when it came to flour, because if it isn't specified whether it's lightly spooned or if it's dip and sweep or how it's measured, you can actually get 1 3/4 times the amount of the flour that you intended. So when people write on our blog and ask questions and they say something is dry, the first thing we ask is, did you weigh? And if not, how did you measure it? And what kind of flour you're using?
So let me ask you that, because I think that is an amazing resistance, right, with the American public about not weighing for baking. And, pretty much every professional kitchen weighs. Many, pastry chefs weigh, bakers weigh. And Why do you think? I mean, it's in a scale. You know, people people have $1,000 phone. You know, a scale is like whatever $30 or under $100. So where is that? What do you think is? Look at that! Look at
Escali
that!
was so thrilled that I got people to be weighing that they actually made a rose scale in my honor. So now these days, most scales will be accurate enough, at least a lot more accurate than the measuring system. But
Wow.
when I started putting it in, yes, there was resistance. But even in restaurant kitchens and top restaurants, where the pastry chef was sitting next to the bread baker, and they didn't necessarily weigh either. So they had a scale, but they tended not to use it unless they were doing large volume, where it makes it faster and easier. But even with small amounts, it's faster, easier, and more accurate. So I wrote an article for the LA Times Syndicate, Way to Bake. That was about 20 years ago. And little by little, it took on so that now I think 99% of baking books have weights in them. And I'm prouder of that than anything else that I've done in my profession.
That is wonderful, and you're completely right about the exactitude of it. So how do you? I love the story when so y'all, we had a little pre-pro call yesterday, and Rose was telling me that she had some construction ongoing in her house, and that she noticed that something was 1/16 of an inch off. Lordy mercy, I love that story. I think that's amazing, and that it shows your attention to detail.
Well, yes, but this was the bathroom, the rod for the towels. It was not baking. Although I probably bring the same thing to baking, because when you make wedding cakes, you want them to look level. And the first one that I did for Bon Appetit, I actually used chopsticks to make it level, and it wasn't. And I remember Martha Stewart saying to me, well, my first wedding cake was totally lopsided, and people asked me if I could make it like that because it looks more homemade. And I thought, you can't really go totally wrong, but I still wanted to achieve doing level. And my breakthrough was using plastic drinking straws, because they can hold a huge amount of weight and they're hollow inside, so that they don't take up the space. And then I would do like a punch biopsy. That way I would get to taste the whole cake after I made it, because otherwise how would you? You stick it in, you suck it out, and you put the other end down. Funny how
Okay, wait a
things
minute. I need
happen.
to make sure I'm following you. So you make a cake,
You
and then
frost it,
and frost it, and then you can
stick the
taste
straw
it.
in, because you want it to be able to support the layer that sits on top of it. And then you pull the straw out carefully, take out the whole, about that much of it is the cake and the frosting, and you get to taste it.
Rose,
And nobody ever.
You have just blown my mind. Oh my gosh, I love that. And how smart. And then you just smooth over that little hole.
Yeah, exactly. Besides, a cardboard round is going to sit on top of it to support the next layers. So people have to remove the straws before they serve cake.
Yeah, this is true. I do know, as speaking of Martha Stewart, so you may or may not know that I worked for her for many years as the kitchen director on her cooking show. We had to deliver a cake one time, and she told us she was worried about the buttercream melting, and she literally told us to drive on the shaded side of the road. And I'm not making this up. The shaded side of the road was the other side of the road, but she was completely serious about driving on the wrong side of the road so that we would get the cake and cake in its perfect condition to its destination.
Well, I would have been the same way, I suppose. She'd
Yeah,
do better
I'm
in England.
sure Martha definitely has a level of precision. Okay, and Bonnie Jacobs says, yes, Bonnie, what a fantastic way to taste the cake. I know that is just such a great. So let me ask you, so we're here, it's a holiday baking special. Really, this time of year kicks up with people baking. People love to have, even during the pandemic, right? People love to have people over, and now it's safer. More people are vaccinated. People give cookies. Do you bake more during the holidays? Or you just bake
asking
all
me?
the time? Yeah.
I remember thinking about, going back to Martha, that what she was doing this for other people, showing them how to do it, probably not doing it for herself, because when you're so busy writing books, doing videos, doing articles, you often do things out of season, and you often don't do them just for yourself. But I have to admit that just yesterday, and I posted this on Instagram, I did an apple upside down cake just because but then I made it legitimate by posting it, so it still worked. We can do that now.
Oh,
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
know, right? It's like I
Mhm.
think that it's amazing the connectivity that we have and how I have
Mhm.
people all the time, and I'm sure you do too. You've commented that, you know, people email you or they make comments about recipes or they ask you questions on your blog, and to have that accessibility, wow, what a gift.
It is. I love that. Social media can be, it has its downside because I'm hooked. I have to admit, I always want to see who responded, what they're saying, thanking them for it, but it's
Right?
such a wonderful way to share information. And the most important is when a book comes out, there's always some mistake. I mean, I have
Right.
to admit, except for the Cake Bible, because I read the 1,000-page manuscript into a tape recorder and played it back against every version to make sure there was not a single mistake in that book, which was a miracle. I couldn't do that again, and I didn't. But there's always a little mistake somewhere, or maybe sometimes even a big one from production. And we can put that on social media. We can put that on our blog. I called it the errata section until people thought it was pornographic. So then I changed it to corrections. Well, I have actually corrections errata. I'm trying to teach people a little Latin here, you know. So,
You are, oh my God, I just keep loving you more. That's fantastic. That's so let me just interrupt for a second. Y'all, for those that are watching, I want you to go. You can get a copy of Rose Basing's Baking Basics. I'm going to ask you to go to Instagram. You're going to follow my feed, Virginia Willis, and you're going to look in there and it's going to tell you how to win a copy. Virginia Willis, follow Real Baking with Rose. And we're going to, so this is streaming live right now on Facebook and YouTube, but we're also going to upload it to IGTV later so you can give it a watch. So let's talk about, so the flour, the way to bake, which I love that. And I love the alliteration. I love all of that. So baking is one, weighing ingredients for baking is one of your sort of missions in the world. And precision is clearly important. And then also you've got 600 step-by-step photographs in this book.
we had to buy a separate refrigerator just to be able to do the prep for the photography. Yeah,
Oh
I'm
my
so
God.
they really came out well. They're not postage stamp ones. They're ones of the critical steps, so you can really see what they look like.
That is the truth. And then y'all said you have a chapter on essential baking equipment. I mean, I think that this is an incredible book. I mean, it's baking basics, but I also know that in a completely different way, like I know that this is accurate, well tested, and the real deal. And so even though I'm a culinary professional, if I have a question about something, then this would definitely be a book that I would go to just for validation or just to make sure that I'm right. So I think that this is great for all kinds of bakers.
Thank you, Virginia. But there is one thing I want to emphasize to people, and that's that I was surprised when I use only part of an egg. Not all recipes these days have to be huge.
Right?
And eggs now, in fact, I was going to show this wonderful little scale from the
Yeah, let's look at it.
1920s, where look, this is how they used to weigh or evaluate the size of an egg. But nowadays, the size of the proportion of yolk to white has changed. It's smaller. And eggs yolks are the emulsifiers. So when you
Right.
separate eggs, this is why I say to a range of maybe 5 to 7 or even 5 to 8, either weigh or do the volume for things where it's critical. But another thing is that if you want to, if a recipe calls for a whole egg, and it isn't critical that you have a right size yolk, what you can do is simply just break it, whisk it, or break it up with a fork, and then weigh or measure it. It's really very simple. I give both the volume and the weight, so don't be put off
Ah,
by saying a half an egg. I wouldn't say 3/4 of an egg, but half an egg is not so bad. And sometimes you can even, like with the oatmeal cookie, I think I called for a half. I tried putting in a whole egg, and it works fine too. So things are
right.
not 100% rigid, especially when it comes to a cookie,
Look
because you
at
can always adjust that.
Jenny is commenting that it's an excellent observation. Check that out. Gigi, that's awesome, Jenny.
That's
You're so
really
smart.
cute. Thank you.
Oh,
And
yay. And look, Natalie Dupree. I'm watching
hi,
YouTube.
Natalie.
Hey, Natalie.
She's the one who taught me how to pronounce pecan. My dearest
Oh,
friend.
that's wonderful. And Cynthia Stevens is here. Love
Oh,
Rose.
Cynthia.
Party.
Oh, I feel like I'm visiting. Well, I am visiting.
You are. I
Wonderful.
know. That's what I'm saying. So that's the truth. Cookbooks with Virginia is like my most favorite part of my whole entire week because I get to talk with great people that I know, great people that I haven't met yet. You know, it's really fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to ask you the question because this is where I would go. What are you going to do with that other half of egg? Like, what's your real life advice for that? I'm not kidding. Like, you know, I mean, because I haven't.
added. Yeah, I understand. You know, and I never throw anything out. My philosophy and theory is that when you love what you're doing, you don't want to waste any of it. You know, I mean, I just scoop every little bit of the white out of the shell. I add it to the other egg or another egg and make it for lunch or for an omelet as a scrambled egg. But I think perhaps the most important egg thing that I've ever discovered, and it was with the Cake Bible, was all recipes say beat an egg white when you're making a meringue until stiff but not dry. Because we all know if it reaches the point where it's too stiff, it will break down. So instead of aerating, it will collapse when it bakes. So I started adding cream of tartar, which is just part of the beer making industry. You know, it's a byproduct. It's nothing chemical, you know. So, and a lot of recipes call for that, but not enough. If you add 1/8 of a teaspoon of cream of tartar per egg white, but egg whites, now that the yolks are smaller, the whites are larger. So you have to either weigh or measure to have it exact. Still, it's better than not using it at all. So I use a teaspoon for 8 egg whites, I guess. It's 1/8 of a teaspoon per egg white. Which
I'm writing this down.
Yeah, you'll love this because you can beat till the cows come home. You can beat for 20 minutes and it doesn't break down. It so stabilizes it. So then when you fold it into another ingredient, it also doesn't break down. At any rate, what was I saying about? Oh yeah, that no, now I forgot what I was saying about how long you can beat. Well, first of all, when you put in with the egg whites, it used to be when you use a handheld mixer and they weren't as powerful that you wouldn't put it in until the egg whites start foaming. But with the stand mixers and more powerful mixers, you can just put it in right from the beginning. It works just as well.
You heard it here first. I have to tell you, I haven't known that. Now I have a bigger question because I don't think I've thought about this, and I love learning so much, and I love that about food and cooking because, heck, I've been doing this for 30 years. Started with Natalie, but I love it when I learn something. So, is the yolk to white ratio? The yolks are smaller. Is that just like the 4-pound bag of sugar now that they're making more money off the white? Like, why?
No, it took me a long time to find out. And it was somebody who raises chickens. And she said in industry, they're using younger laying hens. And I just remembered what it was that I wanted to say about the whites. And that's 1/8 of a teaspoon per egg white means 2 tablespoons of egg white or 28 grams, 1 ounce. And that's it, or 30 grams.
So they're using younger hens. So they're
using, so the younger hens have smaller yolks.
Asking the same thing. This is so funny. Look, why
Isn't that pathetic? Yeah. And the thing is that when you get a carton of eggs, it's supposed to be 24 ounces because they're 12, and each one's, well, theoretically 2, but one could be even 3 ounces and one could be a 1/2 ounce, and one could be a peewee. There's no regulation for that. So each egg is going to be different. And all of them tend to have smaller yolks. So I actually sometimes buy jumbo eggs, even though I don't need the rest of the white, and I freeze the white. So I always have tons of white for other things that I'm going to do.
No, that's fantastic. So I have a question for you about, I'm just going to ask it because I was defrosting some things this morning for the weekend, and because I buy protein and then keep it in the freezer. So I have like a jar full of yolks, and I use a lot of whites because I'm into more skinny baking now, right? So I use a lot of whites in my baking, but I refuse to throw away the yolks. What are some of your favorite things to do with your leftover yolks, and especially that folks can do it for holiday baking?
I'm concerned as to where your yolks are. Are they in the refrigerator?
No, ma'am, they're in a freezer.
In the freezer. Okay, because with the thing with freezing yolks without them becoming gummy and denatured is to freeze them with some sugar. And then I have the amount in the book, in all the books, because this is a big issue. And then when you use it, make sure that you take off the amount of sugar that you've added from the recipe. And if it's just a little, it probably doesn't matter, but this will make all the difference. Now, some of my favorite things to make with yolks, of course, are ice cream, because my ice cream, Rose's Ice Cream Bliss, you'll see has a lot of egg yolks, which is the secret, part of the secret to it being super creamy. I love lemon curd. Just today, I posted a book, for, something from our upcoming book, which should have been out this month, as you know. But and cheesecake is another great thing. But I posted my favorite recipe for Thanksgiving, which was inspired by my cousin, and that's my lemon butter bars. But they also have a layer of cranberry. And originally, her recipe came from Martha Stewart. But instead of using fresh cranberries, I like to use dried cranberries in mine. So
Oh,
lemon curd
nice.
is a wonderful thing. I can't think of anything else because there's so many things that I use
No, no, no,
for.
it's good. It's good. Well, everyone is Jenny's mind is blown about the sugar. Gina Berry's mind is blown about the sugar. That is genius. And no, I will admit, I
I
don't.
didn't make that up though. I mean, I learned that from my reading and my research. Some things
I,
I actually discover, like the cream of tartar, but the egg yolk thing, that's I was a home economist. I mean, I'm coming out of the closet here, but you know, a lot of people think home economists are fuddy-duddies. That was the best training. Scientifically, it got me started in understanding that you need to see the ratio of things. I remember
right.
Michael Ruhlman once at a lecture at NYU talked about he was the first and only one to do ratio, and I raised my hand and I said, I'm a home economist. And Marion Dessel, who ran the department at
Yeah.
NYU, applauded me. She was sitting next to me. And he wrote an apology to me afterwards. You know, we all think we invented things. And often when we do, there are other people somewhere doing the same thing, you know, and
No,
then
I wholeheartedly, yeah.
it's
I
wonderful to connect
wholeheartedly
with them.
believe
Mm.
But I have to tell you, I'm just going to give you the heads up. If Rose Levy Beranbaum invented something about baking, I think that everyone's going to go with that.
Thank you. There are not that many, but I have to tell you one of my greatest new inventions, the reduction spatula. You know how
Okay, let's talk
recipes,
about it.
savory and sweet, say to reduce a recipe by half or by quarter. So then you have to pour it out into a container to see how it's reduced, and then pour it back, and you lose some in the process. This reduction spatula has levels. So whatever size pan you use, you see where you started, you see where you want to end up. And here's the real winner, which I didn't even know this would be the case. I tried putting it in the microwave. And you know, if you try to reduce something in the microwave and you don't stir every 20 seconds, it will explode. Some air bubble in there will explode. You don't have to stir at all. You just leave this thing in and nothing happens for even 20 minutes, 40 minutes, whatever. So I'm very proud of that.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well now we have to find out, where can people get that spatula?
Hopefully on Amazon. These days, silicone is coming from China and there are a lot of problems, but I think that they still have this supply on Amazon.
So if they go to your website, will they get, if they go to Real Baking with Rose, can
On
they
the
find
website, well,
it?
yes, it will give a link to, yeah, thank you
Okay.
very much.
Yeah. No, because I want one. I know that people watching are going to want one. Okay, so let's see. So Gina Berry actually is asking, speaking of lemon curd, because I know a lot of people like to have lemon curd around the holidays. We're about to come into citrus season. Do you have any secrets for lemon curd? I don't even know if it's in this
Oh, I
book or
do. No, I do actually, because
yeah.
every once in a while I would find that I had curdled the curd, not by overheating, but
Right.
by the egg yolk. Egg yolk will be cooked by sugar. I mean, cooked is a term, but it sort of breaks it down in a weird way, and people a lot of times add the sugar to the yolk and let it sit for a while. What I do now is I stir the butter with the yolk first, and it protects it. So then when you add the sugar, it won't hurt it. And I don't even use a thermometer, much as I'm a believer in temperature. With lemon curd, with the curds, it's very hard to tell when it reaches it. So it's best to go by the way it looks. When it starts pooling, take it off because it continues thickening.
Right.
But
I don't
it's
know
the
why.
protecting the yolk that is the biggest issue. And if it doesn't
Protecting.
set well enough, it's because you're not using enough yolk. Because if a recipe says 4 yolks, you may only be really using 3 yolks. That's why it's so important to use the right amount.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so Gina's saying, so whisk the butter into melt and then the sugar, would the butter melt? No, you just like room temperature butter into the yolks.
Yeah, exactly. It's softened butter. And here's something I learned from the great Shirley Courier of Cookwise and Bakewise.
Yes,
She and I
surely.
taught, and Natalie had invited us to teach at Rich's department store. And we each back to back did a week and learned from each other as well.
Back to
And
Natalie.
Shirley said that what happens when you stir egg yolk, it thickens, but you can't cut it. So that's why I put my lemon curd, my lemon butter bars in the oven for a few minutes after I spread the lemon curd, because the proteins reconnect, or whatever it is that's reconnecting. So that's how that picture that you all see, if you look at the posting, it's clean cut, and that's how it does it, without using flour, because the traditional lemon butter bars use flour with the lemon custard, and that's not as pure a flavor. I'm always trying to get the most out of every ingredient, and that's
Oh
the
my
secret.
gosh. I don't even know why I didn't plan this on like a 3-hour afternoon with you, because no one's commenting. I know exactly what's happened. Everyone is like, just like me, like hung on your every word, because I feel like you're spouting all this incredible wisdom, and I'm
that
not
snicker in the background was from my husband Woody, by the way.
Well, Woody, I'm just going to tell you, Woody, that there is a whole world of people that put your wife on a wedding cake pedestal because they think that she is the absolute bomb when it comes to baking and desserts. Oh
He
my gosh.
does too, but like Spencer Tracy said too, Katharine Hepburn, he's trying to cut me down to size. Probably.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
But you know, when
y'all,
you think about it, sorry, Virginia, I was just
No,
going to say
no,
that
go
when you
ahead.
think about it, I've been thinking about this nonstop for about 60, 50 years, 55 years. So when you obsess about something, you keep learning more and more about it. And then ingredients change and you have to learn more to make up for that. So yes, I do know
Oh
a few
my
things
gosh.
about my subject.
Okay, so Natalie, clearly you have to contact Natalie because she's asking a personal question. So Natalie, we're going to get you and Rose hooked together up, not on the show. Cynthia says that she's completely geeking out. Let's see what else. So y'all, if oh my God, just a little bit.
This
Just
is coming from Atlanta, Georgia. Can you see it
oh my
now?
God.
The pie guys, Chris Taylor made this for me. Can you kind of see it?
Fantastic.
It's me as a cookie, and we've had it for several months, and it's been holding up even in humidity. And I can't get myself to eat my own face, and neither can Woody. So, well, I'll just have to wait till company comes, and it's safe to have company.
I don't know. That's a sort of almost like a more refined Howard Finster sort of situation. You might just want to hang that on the wall.
I want to keep it forever is all I can say. But I tried that with my marzipan roses that were on the cover of the Cake Bible, and we moved here and we didn't have air conditioning down here. They melted, even though they were, they softened.
Oh my gosh. Well, y'all, I want to thank everyone. I want to thank Rose so much. Thank you so much for coming today. And I just want to tell everybody about Rose's Baking Basics, 100 essential recipes. We've got cookies, cupcakes, cakes, carrot cake, apple walnut muffins, corn muffins, orange chiffon, chocolate rolls, pies and tarts. I mean, this is like the essential baking book, right?
My favorite chocolate cake, the pure chocolate flourless. It happens to be flourless, and it is pure experience of chocolate.
Okay, well, that's on my to-do list because I love chocolate more than oxygen sometimes. So there you go on that. And I want to thank you so much for joining me today on the holiday baking special. And I'm so grateful. So thank you so much. And I've got just a couple quick questions. Okay, so we know your favorite utensil. We've got your reduction spatula. That's awesome. Who do you like to read, like in terms of cookbooks? Like, is there someone else you go to?
I have to tell you that just recently, and I happen to have it down here, by coincidence, David Leit's Notes on a Banana. It's not per se a cookbook, but he has Leit's Culinary. And at first I didn't know what this meant, but apparently his mother used to give him lunch and put a banana in the lunchbox and make a loving note on it. And I think that's the best title of any food book I've ever seen.
I love his writing, so I can't wait to read that. All
Oh,
right,
you
and
will
then
love it.
checking out, we have so many ways to consume content, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, there's so much. Is there anyone that you like to watch? I always find out someone new.
As far as Instagram, I try not to follow the whole world because everybody's doing so many wonderful things. But you told me that you would ask me a question that wouldn't stump me, and it's like asking a centipede which foot to put forward first. Whom do I like to watch? I would say Erin McDowell. I just love her style. She's a great performer. Her diction is impeccable. Her knowledge is great, and she's just down to earth and practical as well. So
Oh,
that's
that's
it.
so wonderful. Yeah, no, I didn't mean to stump you. Sorry. No, that's awesome.
I unstumped myself.
You unstumped yourself. No, that's fantastic. Well, Rose, thank you so much. And Woody, thank you so much for helping with the setup. And I really appreciate you coming by today. And if people want to follow you and find you, they're going to go to realbakingwithrose.com, right?
Yes.
Awesome. Awesome.
Thank you,
Yay. Well,
Virginia.
yes. Thank you so much. So y'all, thank you so much for joining me today on this special, as a little Saturday special. I'm certain that more folks are going to get to watch it live, and it was great having you here with your comments. So make sure to go to Instagram and you're going to sign up. And if not, I want you to go to your go look for the book online. All the big guys, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, blah blah blah. Independent bookstores, you want to make sure to check out that. And then the last thing I want to talk to you about is I've got a big section on Make Ahead Thanksgiving and the November issue of Eating Well. And yes, I've got a pie in there that is really delicious. It's a buttermilk silk pie. So yes, you can have your cake and eat it too. And it's all about eating well. So thank you so much again for watching me. Thank you for joining Cookbooks with Virginia. Please join me next week. And I'm going to have David Shields and Kevin Mitchell on with their new book. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great weekend and bon appetit, y'all.